There is a weird little big societal thing that we've created with adults where you are expected to know everything. And if you don't, then it's embarrassing. Science at its core is about discovery. That humility, I think, of not knowing and the excitement and openness to discovering new things.
Woo, welcome. You have now entered Mad Warfare, mutually assured distraction, where we explore the weird, terrifying, and sometimes hilarious ways war is fought today, and how we can all protect our minds before we go too mad to find them.
Oh my!
Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern.
How can you talk if you haven't got a brain?
Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern.
Hey, if you've ever wondered why science became a swear word in some corners of the internet, here's a theory. It interrupts the con. Science makes you ask annoying questions like, what's the evidence and who benefits? And that's terrible for people trying to run influence campaigns on your brain. Today, we're talking about why thinking like a scientist is a form of self-defense and cognitive warfare. Welcome back to Mad. I'm Jocelyn Brady.
I'm Sean Bleepin' Guillory.
Our guest today is a science educator and communicator who makes critical thinking fun and who's built cybersecurity training that breaks down how emotional manipulation is engineered. Ooh, please welcome Sophie Shrand.
Great having you.
I'm so glad to be here.
So, Sophie, you've made a living, an enviable living out of making science fun and approachable, like your YouTube series, which I think is how I found you originally, Science with Sophie. What was your thinking going into that, and what has surprised you over time as you got deeper into it?
Science with Sophie is how we first met via the internet. And I look forward to meeting you in person someday, Jocelyn, because we've been internet friends for a long time now.
We have brain meme exchangers.
Exactly. We're like, we love brains. We love comedy. We should be friends.
Yeah. Star Trek. Okay.
Star Trek, so much. So I created Science with Sophie to solve what I call the Frizzle problem. You know Miss Frizzle, Magic School Bus?
I do.
We love it, right? We love Magic School Bus. But she is a cartoon. And in the history of television, writ large, we've never had real life human women doing science on TV at a major scale. We've got Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, David Attenborough, Carl Sagan, the list goes on. It's really hard to come up with a household name that's a woman, right? And that's a solvable problem. So I was working in science education in science museums for about a decade. I was a public science educator. My background is in behavioral neuroscience and in theater. And I've been a theater kid my whole life and found improv and comedy and was using all of these things together to create my own personal brand of education that felt really engaging and fun and inclusive. And I thought, I think that I have the skills, this very niche set of skills, to be the thing I wish I had when I was a kid. And so that's how Science with Sophie came about. And I built the show to be what I wish I could have seen, what I would love other kids to be able to see, and adults. So it is science comedy for girls and everyone for a reason. And I would say that's one of the things that surprised me as I was building this show, which I've been running for a long time now. We reach a lot of people across the world independently, I might add, which means that we can be aligned to next generation science standards and we can make things that we want without having to wait for studio gatekeeping permissions and stuff. One of the things that surprised me is that adults are surprised that they like it, which delights me, but I made it to be inclusive and to feel like science is for everyone. And I find that adults get really cagey about that sometimes because they don't want to be seen as stupid or not knowing something or it's embarrassing. And that's a big thing that I'm combating with my work and how it's evolved over time.
How do you deal with when kind of that same notion, if you have adults who are, I don't want to feel stupid, or I'm not a science person, what do you think it is that they're really reacting to? And what do you wish that they understood that this and science is really all about?
Science at its core is about discovery. So if we knew everything, we wouldn't need to do science, right? And there's no way we could possibly ever know everything, which is why science is so compelling and why we've been doing it since we we're humans. Like we've been doing science for hundreds of thousands of years in various ways, right? We've been documenting it more recently. So science is about that humility, I think, of not knowing and the excitement and openness to discovering new things. There is a weird little big societal thing that we've created with adults where you are expected to know everything. And if you don't, then it's embarrassing. You're an idiot. You're shamed for it. I think it's gotten more extreme with social media as well, because we have a lot of hot takes, a lot of opinions, a lot of very strong opinions that are combative, right? And so I find myself talking to families because I was a public science educator talking with all ages, and kids are naturally so curious and open, and they want to learn, and they ask so many questions, and science is about asking questions. And then there's something that shifts as we get older where we start to feel like, oh, I should know that already. Ooh. There's a reason the show Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader was a good show. Do you know what I mean? That show is really smart because if you are not actively doing science in your daily career, for example, like I wouldn't expect everybody to remember everything they learned in fifth grade. How could we expect that? Our brains have capacities. And, you know, if you want to be good at piano, you have to practice piano, right? If you want to be good at anything, you have to practice it. If you want to remember all of these science facts you learned in fifth grade, you got to keep practicing science. So most adults just don't do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So my invitation is always, come on back to that fun science class and that fun moment that you had as a kid, that sense of curiosity as a kid that is going to really let you like loosen up and be more receptive to new ideas, which is also what good comedy does.
So if you want to be more engaging and more interesting and more entertaining, also it makes you smarter, practice science and comedy. That's our ad. That's the sponsored by Comedy Science. Also, this is crawling my leg right now. So hello, say hello to the mascot cat.
Hi.
Oh my gosh. Hi, mascot cat. I closed my door because I was like, my cats cannot interrupt this podcast. But if we change our minds about that, I'll open that door.
Oh,
Lickety split.
cats
Cats
are
welcome.
always welcome. Absolutely.
Animals.
Welcome. Okay, great.
Yeah, science is this kind of thing where you're doing it right when you're kind of acknowledging it you don't know. But that, like you said, in this like internet kind of like information environment, that's just seen as a weakness. And then there's something also with comedy, and we could talk about, we have this kind of spin-off project in terms of like this podcast, which again is coming soon if it hasn't come out yet, where we even talk about stuff like, you know, is satire dead or not? But that also, again, like satire is not only just humility, but being able to punch up and like folks being like, oh, okay, like I know where, like, is it actually dead or not in that? So this kind of, these pillars of like comedy, science, and just like an information space, and the difference between, in terms of like, you know, one needing like this absolute like humility and recognizing you're human and don't know everything, and that not being, you know, being counter opposite in other spaces. That's an interesting dichotomy that may that may actually, pulling it, explain a lot of the different kind of dynamics of what we're seeing in like all three spaces right now.
Yeah. I come from Second City, which is very satire-based
Yes, yeah.
comedy. So Second City is all about political and social commentary through comedy, which is my jam. I love that. I also love character stuff, but you can do both at the same time. And that's one of the things we do in Science with Sophie and in all the other shows and things that I produce now, because it is a really useful tool. In theater, we say good theater asks good questions or is nothing but technique. Is that great? Arthur Miller said that. He knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, that's good.
Isn't that good? So this is why I think that the intersection of theater and science is so brilliant and useful, because we're all asking questions, right? We want to create that sense of reflection and curiosity about what it means to be ourselves, what it means to be in community with other people, what it means to be on the planet, in the universe. And satire brings that humor and commentary. And I love that you talked about punching up or punching down. Has your audience heard about punching up and punching down? Should we describe
We
it?
should.
So, punching up and punching down in comedy are when we are making fun of either higher status or lower status. So, if you're punching up, you're making fun of someone who's higher status, say the president, in theory, someone who has more power than you, right? If you're punching down, you're making fun of someone who's lower status, like perhaps a child, an adult making fun of a child. That doesn't feel very good when that happens, right? Like I see even right now we're like kind of cringing at ourselves because it doesn't feel good to punch down. It's not a good look in 2026, I would say. We see in the internet that a lot of people do punch down. We see people who are in power right now punch down. It doesn't feel good. Punching up is more where that satire comes in because you are making fun of a system. You're making fun of something that, or you are, rather than making fun of, I would say you're pointing out truths, or you're sparking a conversation and critiquing a system that is in power that may be imperfect because they all are. So that's punching up and punching down. I personally like comedy that doesn't even punch. I'm like, whoa, can we do it? Can we do comedy that doesn't punch, that just is like a hug? And it actually feels real nice. And I'll tell you, that's not just for kids either. That's for everyone.
It also seems like the hardest because it's like having a target seems like an easier thing to do versus how can you get people to laugh without at the expense of no one.
Yeah. We are like the Olympians of comedy. You know how a figure skater makes it look so easy, and that's part of what is so expert about it? I love that you said that, Jocelyn, because there is something really tricky to thread that needle and like walk that line of comedy that makes everybody in the room feel good. I find that ways to do it are moments that are universally recognizable and relatable. So things that we've all been through, things that we've all experienced. And that can be a little bit of like poking fun at oneself, which is close to a punch. It's like a self punch, which is very common in comedy, right? That like self-referential stuff. But I think that when we have moments that we all can appreciate, recognize in ourselves and go, oh my gosh, I've been through that. Oh, I've been there. Oh, I know what that is. That's a moment where we can all be really cohesive. And when we're all in the same laugh together, when we're laughing together and laughing with each other rather than laughing at each other, that is extremely powerful. Because when we talk about the neuroscience of it, we feel safe in that moment because we're having a shared experience. That means our cortisol goes down, our endorphins go up, not only our serotonin and our dopamine, but also our oxytocin, which is our bonding chemical. And that, to me, is one of the coolest things about it. And there are studies that show this. There are also studies that show this is one of my favorite studies of all time, that when patients were given doses of oxytocin, they were more likely to laugh. So when we have, like, there's a way to create that kind of a space where everybody is laughing with each other.
Just a couple like recent examples that come to mind is there's a guy who's trying to show how do I respond to my boss with this text? Like, sounds good. Do I put sounds good, period? Does that sound aggressive? Do I say sounds good? Oh, is that too millennial? It's just like this feeling we've all had of how do I type the thing without it sounding, how's it going to sound? How am I going to, oh, I'm in my head, blah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that very human experience, right? Just what is something that we've all been through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, what's the cost of if we removed science, thinking, and comedy, what would life look like?
Oh boy, I think it'd be pretty bad, and I think we're kind of almost getting there, and it makes me worried we're already there a little bit. Like if we defunded all the programs, if we decimated education, if there was no science and no comedy, what's the phrase? A dull boy.
Oh,
there's a phrase about that. Do you know what I'm talking
Jack
about?
and he murders people at The Shining, I think. That's the phrase.
Oh,
right?
yeah. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy and murder
Yes,
people.
that's it.
That's the phrase. Right. Yeah, I think that we would stop. I think all progress would stop. Right? Science is about discovery and progress. If we didn't laugh, I think that maybe we would die. I mean, I think it's a requirement. It's part of our human existence. If
Right,
we
I
had
mean,
no way of like, it's like a pressure valve.
Yeah.
it's stuck around with humans for some reason.
And
Has to have-
mammals. Mammals
yeah,
laugh.
has to, correct. Oh yeah, like I don't know. I'm
Little
not gonna
nice
talk.
giggles.
No, I haven't talked about me tickling the rats or convincing people to like tickle their penguins and whatnot. That's another day.
It's me.
I think it should be this day.
Tickle
Is it be
penguins?
this day?
We should talk about.
All right.
Yeah, you got to talk about that. You can't just drop that and
No,
leave.
because there is some like famous like I think it was actually up in folks in like Northwestern. Like shout out to Jeff Bergdorf if he's still up there. But like when you tickle rats, they let off this like ultrasonic vocalization that they kind of like analogize to laughing. But yeah, I was curious about different animals, so I would just reach out to kind of preserves or whatnot, or even folks who like worked with like non-human primates. I'm like, can you like tickle your animals for me? And the answers I got back, some folks who went, like I remember some folks like tickled their like penguins, like yeah, they make this like noise. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But I can tell you like the rhesus macaques, the folks who like tickle them, like nah, they didn't like that like at all. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't
have
like
you
it as a
tickle
child
animals.
if some stranger came and tried to tickle me. So
just gonna tickle the animals.
it
Fair
should go-
enough.
That's fair. Tickle animals with consent, y'all.
Yeah, I don't know
guess.
if this has ever been like publicly. So yeah, this is another high exclusive on the Bad Warfare podcast.
As far as animal studies go, that's pretty nice. That's a pretty nice one.
Yeah.
Unless you're a macaque, I guess, and then
Yeah,
it's
then
horrendous.
they didn't like that much at all.
So, thinking about what happens if you get rid of science and laughter. See, I'm laughing because otherwise the option is cry and forever. And we're still in this battle of people trying to stick up for science funding. What do you see in that respect? Like, are we seeing any progress? Is there hope? How do you get funding for how do we get money for science?
Great question. Science has been asking that question as long as there's been science. And art has also been asking that question as long as there's been art. Dare we make a living doing art or trying to discover things about our world? Yes, I firmly believe, yes, we should be able to do good and do well and make a living while trying to make the world a better place. I think there are a couple of things. So things that give me hope are, I know I was just bashing the internet a second ago for being a place of hot takes and wildly swinging opinions. It also is a place where we can share a lot of information with each other. The key is to know what's vetted content and what is vetted science, and that's where scientific thinking and critical thinking come in. That you have to be able to recognize what is the source, where is this coming from, is it reputable? That being said, there are ways that we can get information to each other and spark that sense of curiosity and that excitement to go learn more in ways we couldn't before, in ways that were just much more siloed before. I love when people can go to a science museum. That's how I got my start. And I think going to places of learning are irreplaceable. If you can't get to a science museum, but you can get onto YouTube and you can find some really incredible, cool stuff that's happening there, those are ways that you can be educated, and we kind of democratized education in that way. So I think there's this kind of, I was thinking this morning that we as scientists and creators, artists, communicators, people are like gophers, that we keep coming out of these gopher holes. And it's like, these are different animals, but whack-a-mole is the game, right? Gophers and moles are different. But I feel as though like the powers that be that are trying to suppress these things, the shadow banning, all of the, suppressing of education that is happening from the top in this country right now, is like trying really hard to whack-a-mole, and then we keep popping up and being like, nope, we're still going to do it. We're going to get out here. We're going to come over here. We're going to get into this spot. We're going to do this thing that circumvents the thing that you're trying to suppress, because we cannot be suppressed with our enthusiasm to share information with each other. There's stuff that's more branded, partnerships like that. I am really careful about branded partnerships because I think bias is a huge issue in science. And if we are paid by a company, it automatically introduces bias. There's a reason you want to look at the research studies from any university and see where that funding comes from, right? Or where a study was put out from, and dig a little deeper and a little deeper to see who funded that research study, because money is influence. It's certainly something I'm noticing as a trend.
So you're not selling supplements.
The supplements they aren't gonna sell themselves. They aren't
Going to sell themselves. That's true. I'm also not going to sell them. Unless, I guess, they saved my life somehow. And then I often will be like, hey, I like a thing and I'm going to tell you about it, and I'm not going to take their money because I don't want it to be biased. I just did this project that is a big documentary series where I drove an electric car from Los Angeles to Boston and back and filmed the whole thing. And a huge part of it was testing out the science of sustainable travel and the infrastructure of EVs and climate solutions across the country. Another huge emphasis of it was about feeling hope right now amidst the climate crisis, and a sense of togetherness. And that when you just go talk to people, and I'll put a pin in that because I want to come back to it maybe later in the conversation. But when you just get out and talk to other people, we are so much more alike than we're told. And I think that is more important than it's ever been before. All that is to say, you can't do a road trip project without a car. And I needed an electric car to drive an electric car to make a project about electric cars. But I was really conflicted about that because I didn't want to take money from a car brand because it would be seen as bias. Then it's an ad. And I really didn't want it to be branded content. I did not set out to make a commercial. So that's just something that I've been navigating for my entire career, is how to create things that are about new sciences and technologies without being paid by and perhaps owned by those particular products.
Yeah. And I don't want to forget that pin you put down on the science communication and even talking to folks. I don't want to forget that. But I do want to, since we talked about, again, like, politics and science, which juxtaposing those, there may still be people who think like that, but there was certainly a time where folks almost chastise thinking of science in like a political way whatsoever, as in like, oh, it's supposed to be objective truth. It's supposed to be something that's beyond politics. Even though you have these kind of things where, was it Kuhn's in terms of like paradigm shifts? Again, those paradigm shifts in terms of like people who don't necessarily want those new ideas to come out, like that's politics, ladies and gentlemen. So it's in there in terms of even how like, the momentum of scientific discovery kind of like moves forward. I don't know if anybody can even say with a straight face that science is not this, politics and science don't mix whatsoever, because what we're seeing right now in like science is obviously driven by science. It's not driven by a lack of discovery or a lack of, anything like that. So I don't know if, was there a question in that? But I don't know if you had thoughts in terms of, again, like these parallels, or like how science and politics have always been kind of strange bedfellows, even if folks were like, no, like they're totally different.
Yeah, we like the idea that science is pure and unbiased always. Science is done by humans. Humans have bias. We have inherent bias. It's our job to recognize that bias in ourselves and mitigate it as best we can. That's part of our responsibility. But it is also, of course, going to have society impacted by it and influencing it, because science does not exist in a vacuum. Nothing does, except vacuums. If you put something in a bell jar, then I guess it exists in a vacuum. You could put a marshmallow in there. You know what I'm saying. But it is part of society. It always has been and always will be. And it is also part of actually science communication, and why science communication is so important. Because if we do all of this incredible science in a lab and we make all these amazing discoveries, it doesn't really matter if we don't tell anyone about it. It doesn't really matter if we're not impacting society with those discoveries and sharing what we've learned. So I think it was always actually part of that job of science too, is that once we make these discoveries, then we share them. Unfortunately, science has a PR problem, as we know, and a lot of what we hear about science now feels gloom and doom because it's about all the loss, losing education, losing funding, climate, disasters, warning bells. A lot of science is warning bells, and people don't want those when they're making money off of a thing that scientists are like, hey, maybe that's not a good idea. to make that thing, like oil,
The oil.
I think fossil
The
fuels,
oil, though.
right?
Yeah.
The oil. Yeah, it's just not going to last forever. But gosh, there's so much money to be had, so it's very tricky. Do you know the story of Semmelweis?
Please inform.
Semmelweis is a really interesting story. I know it because my dad is a doctor. He's a child and adolescent psychiatrist specializing in addiction medicine. So if that informs any of, how I am who I am, let it be what it is. But he also is a theater artist and creator, and he was writing a musical about Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis when I was a kid. And so I grew up learning about this through my dad's musical that he wrote. Ignaz Semmelweis is a Hungarian doctor, an obstetrician in the 1800s. And at the time when he was being a doctor in Vienna, Austria, he was noticing that all these women were dying of childbed fever. Childbed fever was this mix of symptoms that was pretty mysterious, and it would be a woman would give birth, and then she would get a fever, she would get all these different symptoms, and she would die. And it was really tragic, and it was happening to hundreds, thousands of women. And it was a mystery. And all these doctors, who were all men, were just like, we don't know what's going on. Women must be dying of modesty. They're embarrassed that there are men here watching them give birth. That was literally a theory. It was modesty. It was like that their economic status had something to do with it. It was all these kind of wacky, non-scientific ideas. Semmelweis was one of the doctors who was doing autopsies. Semmelweis was one of the doctors who was doing the autopsies to try to figure out what was going on. So he would go into the cadaver room, he would do surgery on these dead women, he would mess around in there, and then he would go right from there to the birthing rooms and deliver babies.
Oh my gosh.
Right. What's the missing piece there? What's the part you really need to do in between those two things?
At least
Wash your hands after the dead
At
bodies.
least.
But in the 1800s, they did not know to do that. So there was no germ theory. They did not know that there were germs. Germs had not really been talked about. Microscopic organisms had not really been considered at that point. He was the one who figured that out. Before Lister, we all know Listerine. Lister gets a lot of the credit for germ theory, but Semmelweis actually figured it out first because he made that connection. I'm going from cadaver rooms to birthing rooms. Something must be going from my hands from A to B. And he made that discovery and nobody believed him. It upended too much for people to believe it. It upended their entire practice. It was also in Vienna. He was Hungarian. They didn't like Hungarians, so there was bias against him. He was known as kind of an abrasive guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So political. All of these doctors, it also meant that they were wrong because they had all these theories. They had published all these papers, all of these other scientists, other doctors who had so many very deeply held opinions were wrong. And they didn't like that. So they did not listen to him. And it eventually drove him mad. He ended up proving himself right by cutting his own hand, putting it into a cadaver, and then he developed the symptoms and died of childbed fever, a woman's disease.
My God. Dying for the cause, man.
Right? Isn't it incredible? It gives me chills when I think about it because
Yeah.
it's such an incredible story. And it is an example of how hard it can be to change systems, even though that's what science is about. And all these people get into it in theory with the goal of discovery. And then when it comes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, we just really don't like being wrong.
How do you ease people into that? It's like, do we have to die for the cause, or are there more fun ways to change minds?
I think there have to be more fun ways, right? There just have to, because once you're dead, you can't make any more change.
It's you feed a lot of systems.
Yeah, like you're gone. You can't do more. I guess your memory can or your legacy, but yeah.
No, but yeah.
Silence in the pod.
Yeah.
Womp, womp, womp.
Keep that in there. I mean, yeah, that's an ennui, like setting it.
Yeah.
But it goes again, like the political aspect where some folks are probably, be it tenure and fellowships and can can you at least have the politeness to wait until I retire before you just like debunk all my stuff? So there's that
Right.
arrogance, and then like you said, science, is humans. Even when you end up being right, it's the community, and specifically the high hat, the powdered wig, kind of folks in the community who I won't say ultimately are like the acceptors or not, but they could put their political weight here and there in terms of things around which. So again, just want to like foot stomp the political aspect, or at least saying like that's a dynamic that always needs to be like accounted for, and not just oh no, science is not a political thing.
So many things would be improved if we just could let go of our egos, right? It's like this is a PSA that I would like to put out there. If we all of us could let go of our egos a little bit, we could actually get a lot more done, and we could learn a ton more, and we could make a lot of progress because it's okay to be wrong. We actually don't learn things unless we are wrong about stuff, right? As we're like developing, engineers are actually really good at this. Engineers
Mm-hmm.
are really good at that cycle of messing up, learning something, iterating. And I think that we all could stand to benefit from being okay with that.
Be it science, comedy, or politics, lingo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's like a little way people can practice that letting go of ego?
That's a good question. Have a cat, talk to a kid,
It goes full circle.
be a beginner at something. I think a really good way to let go of ego is to be new at a thing. Like go rock climbing, go to a rock climbing gym. I am a rock climber. I climb in gyms and I love rock climbing. One of the things that I love about it is that it's very humbling. That I've been doing it for years and I will fall off of climbs. I will fall off that wall. I will have trouble figuring out the next move. Either my body or my brain or both won't communicate in the way that I want them to, or I can see something in theory and then I can't quite get it. And it's frustrating and it's so important. And then when I do finally get that climb, it is so much more satisfying because I've worked on it and I've been persistent and things like that take the stakes out of it. So it's not your career at stake, right? You're doing this for fun. One of my climbing buddies says like, we do this for fun. I am strong. I can do this. And also it's for fun. So I think, yeah, maybe a long way of answering your question, Jocelyn, but I think finding fun, low stakes ways to get yourself in a space of humility will be good practice for when the stakes are higher.
Play, experiment.
Play. Yes. Take an improv class. Oh my gosh. Take an improv class.
Yeah, so-
Seriously, every single person should take an improv class. I am not sponsored by improv. They don't have enough money to sponsor me.
1,000% agree with that. I mean, that's yeah, you've heard me rant about this, but like, I think especially the people who take this bill super seriously, and I would love to see the entire administration do an improv show, actually. Can we make that happen?
Please, because girl, when I'm watching this stuff, I'm like, I couldn't write this script. If we wrote this in the comedy, people would say it was too on the nose.
Oh
Then
my
here we
God.
are.
My goodness. All right.
Yeah.
So I didn't forget about that pin. The pin, I'm pulling it out now. In terms of if somebody comes to you and they're saying, hey, like I want to be like a science communicator like you, do you have any like programs that you would point people, or class, it could be an improv, that you would point folks to be like, here's the kind of place that you can learn kind of science communication? And this could end up just being a on-ramp right back to talking about academia, because that doesn't seem like, at least when I was in grad school, which admittedly now is over 10 years ago, besides the going after and trying to be like a researcher of some kind, there really wasn't classes, or I don't know if some folks would even dare admit out loud that, they wanted to do, teaching or science communication, and it didn't seem like there was those kind of resources at the time. But I don't know if there's anything new that you wanted to shout out, or you feel free to also use this as another opportunity to talk about academia, maybe picking up the slack on that.
When I was studying neuroscience and theater and getting a degree in each one at the same time, that was rare. I think it's still kind of rare, but there wasn't a way to formally do science communication or learn it. Now there are tracks. There are academic tracks that are in science communication. Yeah. So we've made a lot of progress as far as recognizing that that is a specific skill set that can be honed and learned, and a career path as well. So I'm thrilled to announce I did not start these programs, but I'm happy to share that there are lots of new avenues now that you can like formally get a degree in science communication. If that's not something that you want to do as far as where you're spending your time dollars or degrees, the way that I really honed my skills was in working in science museums and doing public science ed. So I would say go to a science museum and watch the shows. People do live shows, people are doing programming, people are doing hands-on activities, everything from big scale. I was doing big scale lightning shows at the Museum of Science in Boston with a Van de Graaff generator, which generates 1,000,000 volts of electric charge and creates 3-story tall lightning storms inside. Incredible. Like, there are big scale shows. So if you go to see those shows, you'll see what it means to have that kind of grand scale performance in science communication. And then go to a hands-on activity that's a one-on-one, encounter. There are carts in museums that will have a docent or a facilitator there showing you about circuits or electric currents, or they might have an animal out or something. So you can really observe different scales of in-person science communication, and in-person, I think, is truly the best way to get started. Because then you can go to the internet and watch YouTube creators, watch other people that you like creating online, but definitely make sure you get that in-person component.
It's just like comedy. You got to go see it in person. You can enjoy the clips online, but there's nothing will ever compare, especially improv. You can't really watch improv on a screen, like, ever.
It wasn't designed for a screen. No. Dropout does a great job. Like,
That's
there are
true.
some that are good at it, and like Whose Line has always been a great,
Like
I
the
think,
game
way to
style.
bring
Yeah.
short form games, exactly. But yeah, improv theater, it was meant to be experienced
Yeah.
live.
Yeah. This is all making me think about the importance of scientific thinking, asking questions, being able to poke at stuff, dropping ego, and then being able to communicate complex things, which in, many years my career has been many years trying to help people communicate complex things. And that is a skill that is still lacking. And especially with the rise of AI, if you can't understand how to translate something, you don't know what good looks like, AI is not going to help you, folks. And yeah, kind of good segue to AI, I suppose, and what we can do about that if critical thinking is so needed, being able to translate things is so needed, and yet here we are with this easy drug. What do we do?
Listen, drugs will kill you. Okay.
Drugs are bad, okay?
So don't do drugs unless you've talked to your doctor and there's anyway, AI really scares me from a neuroscience perspective. It makes me very uncomfortable because I love our brain so much. And we talked about this earlier. If you want to be good at piano, you have to practice piano. If you want to be able to write, you have to practice writing. If you want to be able to make art, you have to practice making art. If you want to be a painter, you got to practice painting. If you want to make music, you got to practice making music. So if we start to let ourselves be completely romanced by this idea that we can make things easier for ourselves, it is an illusion, because we are not actually making things easier for ourselves. We're making ourselves lazier. To what end?
So that kind of aspect of, I think some of the terminology I've seen around is like de-skilling or cognitive de-skilling on things like that. I'd love to hear, even within this aspect, your thoughts in terms of like AI and that kind of security, or even, thinking way more like a cybersecurity hat now that certain things like Grok have been rolled out, at a bigger level in like the Department of Defense, Department of War kind of level. If folks were getting de-skilled and if somebody did take out the AI, oh boy, we can imagine again the security scenarios on that.
So there are so many different things going on, and I could go on an entire rant about this. So please feel free to say, hold it there, Soph, because I get a lot of thoughts. It literally keeps me up at night. So there's the thing is, as the scientist who cares about our brains, right? We want to maintain our own skills, our own creativity. As an artist too, I want us to maintain our own creativity. If we don't use it, we will lose it. And then what? What is the end goal here? Because anyone who's ever made something, which is all of us here, and I think everybody listening has made something in your life. And the satisfaction comes with the work that you put in. When you work hard at something and then you make it and it's done, or you see the impact, maybe it's not even done, but you get to feel that sense of accomplishment. That is all removed when it's as simple as putting something into a little text box and having it done for you. So that doesn't really make sense to me because it's not fun. It also is not done well for you. So I don't see, again, what the point is when I could use my own brain to do something that's actually tends to be more efficient. Because when I hear about, if we're thinking along the lines of when you put something into ChatGPT and then you need to check that source, make sure it's accurate. We know that it lies. We call it hallucinating. It's actually just lying because it can't be wrong, which comes back. Maybe AI has the big ego problem. Perhaps that's it. And it just can't say, I don't know. That's right. We all need to admit we don't know things. So all of that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of resources. We are destroying our water. We are using so many resources for something that I feel I have been able to do in less time by myself. So it just confuses the heck out of me, except that I know that we are being pushed with it. People are pushing it onto us because they're standing to make money from it. So one of the things as scientists and critical thinkers that we all need to do when something is being pushed upon us and forced on us, and when we're only hearing one writ large opinion about something, as critical thinkers, we need to take a step back and say, why is that what I'm hearing? Who says? Really what it comes down to is who says? And look into it and think about where that is coming from. So when we look at who is promoting all of this use of AI to replace human skill, replace jobs, replace people who need to live on the planet and earn a living, by the way, and people who are entry level into some of these positions. So we're actually creating a pipeline issue, because if AI is taking over jobs that we would be hiring an intern to do, someone who's just getting out of college, how dare we take away opportunities like that for people who are just getting started in their careers? When we look at who is telling us we need to be doing that, it's the companies that stand to make money from it. It's the ones who are trying not to lose their shirts because they've invested billions of dollars in a system that nobody really asked for. So I think that it is a huge risk if we let ourselves go with that flow. And it's really important that we push back and that we think for ourselves and make a choice. We have a choice in what we use and what we don't use. We have a choice every single time.
And back to your point that it takes a little effort, or like the whole, there's this thing called the IKEA effect where, IKEA would make it actually one step more difficult, because if people felt like it was too easy and things just came to them the way this garbage stuff came assembled, then they wouldn't appreciate it as much. But once they put in a little effort, even if it was cheap stuff, all of a sudden there's a level of pride. And granted, sometimes the effort is 1,300 hours of just wanting to burn everything. But then you have a shelf that might hold up.
That's right. Honestly. And that's something I think, what's interesting as we're saying this, I'm realizing AI is kind of at the apex right now of that trend. We always want to make things easier for ourselves. That we as humans have always made things more efficient. We strive to make things flow better, be more streamlined, save ourselves time, money, expense, work, emotional expense, all that stuff. I get that. I run a business. I also need to get a certain amount of things done every day, right? And at the same time, I'm not sure why we are so obsessed with things being fast.
Yeah, like where does that come from?
Right. Where does it come from? Why is that the goal? To just be faster? Because when we talk to each other about how we're feeling, whenever I talk to anybody about how do we feel about all this stuff being so fast? No one's happy about it. We're all just kind of miserable. Like, people might say, oh, ChatGPT saves me time with creating my schedule or whatever. But at the end of the day, you still have to do those things. Like, I don't know how much time it's really saving. And I also don't know why we were obsessed with things just being faster, 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 when our human brains can only process at a certain speed. And things deserve time. Good work deserves the time. Spend the dang time on it.
Yeah, I can't see anything besides, again, just usually artificially conferred kind of deadlines and then like just wanting more transactions. So it goes, and that money you already talked about, where that money ends up ultimately going.
Yeah, it's not in my pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it in yours?
No, ain't mine either.
I don't think, right? I mean, I don't want to assume, but I think that it's not, because it's not in any of our pockets. It's not going to working class people, the people whose jobs are at stake and the people whose skills have built all of these systems to begin with.
I know.
And I got to say, you know what? Oh, so this is another tangent, but I just wrote a big grant application. I was working with a few different people on it, and it was due last night. And for the past 2 weeks, it has been nonstop working on this grant application. 12-hour days, huge amount of work. I am so proud of what I delivered for that grant. And the people I was working with were constantly impressed at what my team was able to create. And they were like, oh my God, this is so good. Oh, you made this thing. Oh my gosh, this is, we have to get this grant. This is so great because what you've made is incredible. Not one little piece of AI was involved in the making of this grant application because our human skill is what we needed. And I wouldn't want to do it any other way. Because if I had used AI to write my budget for me, well, guess what? I now have no actual knowledge of that budget. I need to go through every line item of that budget to know what I would need for this grant because I'm responsible for that. So yeah, it's so possible. We've been doing it for so long. We can create tools that help us get these things done more efficiently, but not at the expense of human creativity and human genius.
Just like
that trade-off is never going to be worth it.
Yeah, like businesses should be horrified by if your team is resorting to AI for everything. Like, to your point, they won't know if things are right. They won't know if they're going to work. They won't know how to fix them. And to Sean's point about like, well, let's just unleash Grok for the national defense, the same thing that's putting underwear on women without their consent and children, by the way. And what could go wrong? And to this point, you have created a training series on cybersecurity, and you're also talking about how scams work. AI, Grok. Can you tell us more about that? Like, what should we know? What is a scammer's favorite move? How do we look out for that?
This is a world I did not see myself getting into the cybersecurity space, and then I realized it's important now more than ever. And this was a project that was brought to us by Arizona State University because they said, can you make our training more fun? And then also you can license it to whoever you want to. And I said, yes, we can help a lot of people with that. So we made it to be fun and empathetic. And I think that's what makes it different from a lot of these types of trainings that feel bad. Like if you've ever had to take a training, they're not fun, but they also make you feel bad.
Yeah.
They make you feel stupid for clicking the link. Because at the end of the day, that number one trick is still phishing. It's still the link. It's the phishing email. That is still the number one strategy. Now, the way that they're done is getting better and better because AI is being used to make things harder to tell the difference between what's real and what's not. And ultimately, what it comes down to is preying on our psychology. So these phishing emails, social engineering, the deep fakes, the voice and video fakes and all of that that's now happening are really preying on the fact that you are a human being with emotions. So it might create a sense of urgency. Click now for this opportunity. A lot of scams that we're seeing now are about job opportunities, which breaks my heart. I get, right? Do you get them? I get them. I get texts that are like, I'm from LinkedIn. I'm a recruiter from Indeed. And it just makes me so sad because I'm like, no, you're
Predatory.
not. This is so predatory. Exactly. And it's really psychologically sophisticated. What do people care about right now? Oh, we have an unemployment issue. We have an underemployment crisis. Everybody's looking for jobs. Let's prey on that. And people are more likely to click on it. Or this is a survey and you'll get $50. People might be more likely to click on that than they were before too, because people are in worse off times and it's harder to make money. And so anything like that is even more compelling than it used to be. The deep fake stuff is really worrisome and getting better all the time. So the phone calls that you might get that sound like a person you know. Another reason why it's really critical that we have consent and choice with AI, because I have never given permission for my voice to be put through an AI language model. But it's still being put through because the internet is
By all
hard.
means, yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's just being
interneting.
scraped. It's the internet is interneting, and the worst part of the internet is interneting. So suddenly now my voice can be recreated without my consent, right? Your voice can be recreated without your consent, can make you say anything. That feels bad. That feels like a bad idea, right? Doesn't it just feel like a bad idea?
I'll just take the bikini.
There's insert
Please
Sean
don't
with
make me say
bikini.
stuff. Please don't make me say certain things. Just put me in the bikini.
Sean's giving his consent.
I
to be
just,
put in
I
a
just get
bikini.
if it was either or, please, just the bikini. But
I have a story. I have a story to share also about the flip side of the AI deepfake thing that I recently was hearing from someone. So somebody was telling me that they got a call that sounded like a relative, and that relative was like, I'm in jail and I need bail money and all that stuff that now we're like, that's classic AI. I'm not falling for it. We made an episode about it in this training about why that is so psychologically scary and so many people do fall for it. And for good reason, because it's terrifying and it's designed to be that way. So what we say is just take a second and think. Think about the context. Take your time. Don't be forced into a decision quickly. So here's a person who got a call like that. It's not like they took this training. It was just a friend of mine who was telling this story. And she was like, I know about this. I'm not falling for it. So she didn't pick up, went to voicemail, whatever. A few hours later, gets another call. And by the end of the day, she realized that it was actually her relative who had been
oh no,
Say,
arrested for
oh no, what if it's real?
it actually was real, and it was this like young person who had been drinking and like shouldn't have been driving and
kind
got
of
caught
false
and,
negative.
yeah, and this poor little sibling was like, help, I'm in the drunk tank and I need to get out.
not the drunk.
And basically the drunk tank, because this is what happened. And then the whole family was like, oh my gosh, they've been in there all day and we didn't know. And luckily everything worked out okay. But, there's that side of it, is that now it makes it so much harder to know what's real. And that's what's so destabilizing to the very foundation of how we live our lives. If we can't trust anything, then it starts to break down our trust in each other. And that's where I start to get really worried.
So we're nearing the end. And funny enough, even before our conversation, we were hoping to get something in around our kind of like collective love of Star Trek. But having this conversation today, it feels like we're so far away from that future. It's like terrifying, including, like Star Trek being one of the first shows that really embracing even like that diversity, equity, inclusion at that time, that you would see these folks of these backgrounds.
You just said a naughty word.
Yeah, they made it to space. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so bleep that out as well. But it just feels like we're in this like opposite of that universe
upside
still
down.
on Earth. Yeah, we're in the upside. Oh, yes, it's stranger. It doesn't get any stranger than this thing. But I don't know if it doesn't have to be hope. Just your thoughts on that, or like, yeah, Sean,
How can Star
cooked,
Trek
or-
help save us?
thank you. That's a much more optimistic way to put it.
Well, in Star Trek, and in Deep Space Nine in particular, they do talk about World War III, and they do go back to a period of human history, which is in our near future. That is when things got really, really bad. And they talk about how we almost didn't make it. And then we came out as a society better for it. And that gives me some hope. And one of the things that I love about Star Trek and the reasons that I'm watching Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager again, the older ones, is because A, it's a slower pace of television than we get today. And as somebody who makes television, I really appreciate that comforting pace of older TV where you got time to breathe. But when I watch these Star Trek episodes, I almost forget that it's fiction. And I find myself being like, yeah, we did figure it out. Oh, good. And then I have to remind myself that it is not real and it's made up, but it's the future that we hope for. So I watch it for that reason, because it gives me hope that we will figure it out, not because it's a documentary, but because people who were envisioning that future, a lot of futurists have that vision for us. And another reason that I have hope is because of that thing I put a pin in earlier, this project I did where I drove across the country in an electric car to make a docuseries and meet people who I had misconceptions about, or people who I would never have otherwise met, and people who I might think something about, they might have misconceptions about me. What happens when we just meet in person and have to confront those misconceptions literally head on? And overall, overwhelmingly, there was curiosity over confrontation. There was connection over animosity. We all wanted the same stuff. We wanted to take care of ourselves and our family. We want to be able to breathe the air and drink the water and make sure our neighbors are okay. And in this moment, I know that sounds naive. I know it sounds perhaps Pollyanna-ish or pie in the sky or just impossible. And so my recommendation is get out into the world and go walk around your neighborhood and go to your community theater play, go to the library, go to a club, find ways, instant club or a book club, whatever kind of club it's for you. Just find ways to be with people in the room together. Because when we are in those spaces, those walls come down. We are more alike than we think. Even if we have wildly different opinions, we're together. And that cannot be taken away.
Sophie, how can people find you?
3 mic drops.
3 mic drops. Find me in the whack-a-mole game. I'll be there popping up. Boop, boop, boop. I am on Instagram at Science with Sophie. And if you want to learn more about Cool Jacket Productions, which is my production company that makes this cyber project and this docuseries and all things that are joyful solutions to serious problems, that is cooljacketproductions.com.
Oh, so good to have you. Thank you so much. I feel more buoyant. I feel more joyful about difficult solutions ahead.
I'm so glad. We have to have joy and hope, right? Comedy comes from pain, and it helps us process and move forward. So I'm really thankful for this conversation today.
I've come to talk with you again. Come and be inside my head. Cancel me, cancel me. I got things to say, you can cancel me. Cancel me, cancel me. I got things to say, you can cancel me. Cancel me, cancel me. I got things to say, you can cancel me. It's only a matter of time till we all win. Cancel gonna say. It's only a matter of time till we all win. Cancel gonna say. cancel me.